Hello students, welcome to Read MedPrep Academy channel. Today in Environmental Issues Part 1, we shall talk about the introduction to the environmental issues, greenhouse effect in global warming and ozone depletion. After understanding the structure and functions of the major ecosystems of the world, now we will observe and understand the environmental problems of our surroundings at local, national and international level. Some of the environmental issues we are facing today are overpopulation, health issues, waste disposal, all types of pollution, greenhouse gases, ozone depletion, water, energy, food scarcity, deforestation, climate change, industrialization and urbanization impacts. Environmental issues are the problems and harmful effects created by humans' unmindful activity and overutilization of valuable resources obtained from the nature, that is the environment. We should understand not only the environmental issues we are facing now, but also find solutions to rectify or reduce these problems. Countries of the whole world agree that something needs to be done about these important environmental issues. Many global summits, conferences and conventions are regularly conducted by the United Nations, and many steps are taken to minimize the human-induced issues by signing agreements with around 150 countries. Drastic increase in population resulted in demand for more productivity of the food materials, fibers, fuels, which lead to many environmental issues in agriculture, land use modifications resulting in loss of biodiversity, land degradation, reduction in freshwater availability, and also resulting in man-made global warming by greenhouse gases, even altering the climatic conditions. What are the causes, effects and solutions of overpopulation? The causes: improvement in medical knowledge, decline in death rate, industrial and agricultural revolution, progress in food production, poverty, religious concerns, migration and urban concentrations, immigration, family planning. What are the effects? Environmental degradation, depletion of natural resources, wars, mortality, increase in crime rates, loss in biodiversity, ecological collapse, water and food conflicts, overextensive farming, excessive use of fossil fuels, loss of arable land and desertification, antibiotic resistant bacteria, increasing probability of epidemics, malnutrition and starvation, increasing costs of living and housing, rise in unemployment. What are the solutions? Improvement of the family planning methods, raising awareness on the topics, education, birth regulation, extraterrestrial settlement. As an activity, we may form eco groups and discuss ecological issues of our premises and find solutions to the existing problems like the litter disposal, water stagnation, health and hygiene, greening the campus and its maintenance. Now, what are the human impact on the environment? The effects of human overpopulation causes loss of land and habitat, water and food shortage, poor sanitation, species extinction, poverty, emerging disease, deforestation like the loss of forests causes soil erosion, loss of habitat and species extinction. Worldwide, about half of the area covered by forests have been cleared. Loss of biodiversity, the variety of organisms in an ecosystem are lost. An imbalance can cause extinction of the plants and animals. Pesticide use, using chemicals to kill and control the pests, will sometimes kill non-target species, pollutes water sources, causes health problems. Biological magnification or bioaccumulation, concentrations of harmful substances, increase in organisms at higher trophic levels in a food web. Now let us move on to the greenhouse effect and global warming. Greenhouse effect is a process by which the radiant heat from the sun is captured by gases in the atmosphere that increase the temperature of the earth ultimately. The gases that capture heat are called greenhouse gases, which include carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and a variety of manufactured chemicals like the chlorofluorocarbons. The relative contribution of greenhouse gases Carbon dioxide occupies about 60%, methane 20%, CFC 14%, and others are 6%. Increase in greenhouse gases leads to irreversible changes in the major ecosystems and the climate patterns. For example, coral ecosystem is affected by increase in temperature, especially coral bleaching observed in Gulf of Mannar in Tamil Nadu. What are the human activities that leads to produce the greenhouse effect? These are by burning fossil fuels which release carbon dioxide and methane into the atmosphere. Here you can see in this image the burning of fossil fuels results in the release of lot of carbon dioxide and methane into the atmosphere. Ways of agriculture and animal husbandry practices has to be improved. For example, excess use of chemical fertilizers leads to runoff and the groundwater contamination. The inorganic salts dissolved in the groundwater eventually enter the lakes, ponds and rivers. Fish begin to die as oxygen level falls, and there is increased growth of algae shading out other plants. Increased nutrients absorbed by the algae, increased decomposition of dead algae, uses up the oxygen that is present in the water and prevents the oxygen availability to other plants. Animal husbandry, what is this? The branch of agriculture that deals with the feeding, caring and breeding of domestic animal is called animal husbandry. Husbanding means to use a resource carefully and without waste. Thus, animal farming or animal husbandry requires planning for domestic animals like shelter, breeding, health, disease control and proper economic utilization. Our domestic animals or livestock includes those animals which are raised for farming. Example, cattle like cow, bull or ox, buffalo, yak, horse, ass, goat, sheep, camel, etc. As the population is increasing and as living standards are increasing, the demand for milk, egg and meat is also going up. Also, the growing awareness of the need for humane treatment of livestock has brought in limitation in livestock farming. Thus, livestock production also needs to be improved. What are the problems faced in animal husbandry? Foul odor emanates from barns, shed and septic tanks. A huge infestation of flies and ticks occur in shed and on animals, which creates sanitation and disease problems. Improper sanitation usually brings disease incidents frequently. Large quantity of disinfectants and antibiotics are needed for proper maintenance. This creates environmental and water pollution. Fecal matter, when left untreated, creates foul odor and incidents of flies and other insects. Lot of electrical gadgets are used called the e-waste like refrigerator and air conditioners, which release chlorofluorocarbons into the atmosphere. So the environmental pollution can be caused by electronic products. Use of electronic products have increased with the development of technology. Nowadays, people are using many electronic products in the day-to-day life, as these electronic products are making their life easier and providing the comfortable life. So various electronic devices are used like the car toy, ceiling fan, chandelier, clock, clothes dryer, mouse, MP3 player, oil-free fryer, piano, coffee maker, computer, copier, curling iron, digital camera, oven, plotter, pressure cooker, printer, dishwasher, doorbell camera, drill, DVD player, earphones, projector, radiator, radio, reading lamp, refrigerator, electric frying pan, electric grill, electric guitar, electric pencil sharpener, remote control, rice cooker, safe and robotic devices. All these electronic devices can accumulate as e-waste and cause pollution. The fertilizers are used in the agriculture which release lot of N2O. You can see the schematic illustration of the soil N2O emissions. When urea is applied to the soil, this urea is converted into ammonia in the soil. During this process, volatilization occurs and there is release of ammonium ions and nitrogen ions into the atmosphere, which is a dry deposition of ammonium and nitrogen dioxide. When the ammonia is converted into ammonium ions or nitrification occurs in the formation of nitrate ion, there is a release of N2O and NO. When NO3 or nitrate is converted to NO2 by denitrification, there is a release of N2O, N2 and NO into the atmosphere. The precipitation of rain will bring down the dissolved organic nitrogen or ammonium ions or nitrates into the soil. All these can help in emission of N2O into the atmosphere. Emissions from automobiles also help in the release of lot of gases into the atmosphere. The factors that affect the emissions of vehicle pollutants, it may be travel related, like the engine operating mode, hot start, cold start and hot stabilized, or speed level or speed variation. Facility related, like the engineering features. Driver related, vehicle related, like the age and mileage, maintenance condition, weight and size, engine power, fuel delivery system, emission control system, fuel type used, like the volatility, content of oxygen, lead, sulfur, etc. Environmental factors like the ambient temperature, altitude and humidity. The increase in the mean global temperature, which is highest in 4,000 years due to increased concentration of greenhouse gases, is called global warming. One of the reasons for this is overpopulation, which creates growing need for food, fiber and fuel, and considered to be the major cause of global warming. Clouds and dust particles can also produce greenhouse effect. That is why clouds, dust and humid nights are warmer than clear dust-free dry nights. Here in this image you can see the mineral dust impacts on the climate. Dust emission requires strong wind, dry soil, sparse vegetation and saltating particles. So these dust particles are transported to long distances. Because of rain, wet precipitation occurs, or dry deposition can occur because of transport of these dust particles into the oceans, into the land or water bodies or onto the snow. So dust absorbs and scatters both short wave and long wave radiation, aerosol and direct effect. Dust alters the cloud properties by acting as nuclei for cloud droplets and ice crystals. Dust impacts the biogeochemical cycles of the ocean and land by transporting and depositing the nutrients. Dust can affect the Earth's albedo by stimulating the algae growth and getting deposited on the snow or ice. So what are the effects of global warming? Rise in global temperature, which causes the sea levels to rise as polar ice caps and glaciers begin to melt, causing submergence of many coastal cities in many parts of the world. What causes the sea level to change? Terrestrial water storage, extraction of groundwater, building of reservoirs, changes in runoff and seepage into the aquifers. Subsidence in river delta region, land movements and tectonic displacements. Surface and deep ocean circulation changes, storm surges. As the ocean warms, the water expands and there is exchange of water stored on the land by the glaciers and ice sheets with the ocean water. There will be a drastic change in the weather patterns, bringing more floods or droughts in some areas of the world. Biological diversity may get modified. Some species ranges get redefined. Tropics and subtropics may face the problem of decreased food production. Here you can see biodiversity loss, the primary drivers, habitat loss because of the thinning, fragmenting or outright destruction of an ecosystem's plant, soil, hydrologic and nutrient resources. Invasive species, any non-native species that significantly modifies or disrupts the ecosystems it colonizes. Overexploitation, process of harvesting too many aquatic or terrestrial animals which depletes the stocks of some species while driving others to extinction. Pollution, addition to any substance or any form of energy to the environment at a rate faster than it can be rendered harmless. Climate change associated with global warming, modification of the Earth's climate associated with rising levels of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere over the past 1 or 2 centuries. So all these factors are influenced by human population growth, increasing consumption of food, fuel and fiber and reduced resource efficiency. These effects cause biodiversity loss, causing reduction in the number of genes, individual organisms, species and ecosystems in a given area. What are the sources of greenhouse gases emission which are natural and anthropogenic? Carbon dioxide. Coal-based power plants by the burning of fossil fuels for electricity generation releases a lot of carbon dioxide. Combustion of fuels in the engines of automobiles, commercial vehicles, and airplanes contribute the most of the global warming. Agricultural practices like stubble burning result in emission of carbon dioxide. Natural from organic matter from volcanoes, warm oceans, and sediments. Here you can see the global carbon cycle. Global gross primary production and respiration results in release of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. There is exchange of carbon dioxide between the atmosphere and the oceans. Fossil fuel combustion industrial process also release lot of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. So the carbon flux may be a natural flux or an anthropogenic flux. Now methane. Methane is 20 times as effective as carbon dioxide at trapping the heat in the atmosphere. Its sources are attributed as paddy cultivation, cattle rearing, bacteria in water bodies, fossil fuel production, ocean, non-wetland soils, and forest wildfires. Here in this image you can see, to understand, the cattle and sheep eat grass which contains carbon which is taken up from the soil. Microbes in the stomach help to digest the grass in the animal. Some of the carbon is converted to methane and the animal burps into the air and methane is released. This methane traps heat in the atmosphere, causing climate change. Some of the carbon is exhaled as carbon dioxide. It ends up in milk and meat sometimes. The methane eventually breaks down into carbon dioxide, and carbon dioxide is released and absorbed by the plants for photosynthesis. Pastures absorb carbon from the air as it grows and forms food in the form of starch in the plants. Now nitrous oxide. It is naturally produced in oceans from biological sources of soil and water due to microbial actions and rainforests. Man-made sources include nylon and nitric acid production, use of fertilizers in agriculture, manures, cars with catalytic converter, and burning of organic matter. Here in this image you can see that the application of fertilizer to the soil helps in the formation of ammonium ions. The conversion of ammonium ions into the nitrate ions results in the formation of release of N2O into the atmosphere. This nitrate and the ammonium ions are taken up by the plants for its growth. These nitrate ions sometimes are converted into nitrous oxide in the soil. These nitrous oxide are released into the atmosphere in the form of nitrous oxide itself or in the form of nitrogen. One molecule of nitrous oxide released into the atmosphere contributes to about 300 times more to climate change than a single molecule of carbon dioxide. Global warming effects on plants. Low agricultural productivity occurs. Frequent heat waves, weeds, pests, fungi need warmer temperature. You can see in the graph that the temperature which was colder and mean has just pushed itself to a more warmer climate, and that climate has become more hot, and more hot weather has also been recorded. Increase of vectors and epidemics because of the climate change and the gradual change that has occurred causes global warming, change in rainfalls and extreme events, storms and floods. What are the affected factors? Contamination of water and foods by bacteria, increase in number and activity of the vectors, expansion of the infested areas. What are the projected effects? Increase in water and food-borne diarrheal diseases, increase and expansion of mosquito-borne infectious diseases. Because of socio-economical basis, foreign trade and trips, and air pollution, age distribution and immunodeficient population, there is increase of vectors and epidemics. Strong storms and intense flood can also cause damages. Water crisis and decreased irrigation. How this occurs? The water storage is in the form of ice and snow. Because of global warming, there is conversion of the glaciers and ice and snow into water. And heavy rain, because of precipitation from the clouds and water vapor, comes down to the earth, and this causes a runoff into the stream. Because the water becomes runoff, there is no recharge of the groundwater, and this runoff water enters into the ocean as unutilized water. And the excessive radiation from the sun, there is evaporation of lot of water from the oceans and the water bodies, and the plants produce lot of evapotranspiration, resulting in loss of water into the atmosphere. When we are not able to manage the water cycle properly in the earth, we will face water crisis and decreased irrigation. Change in the flowering seasons and pollinators. Failure for plants to find proper mates. Temporal mismatch with the pollinators. Plants are unable to provide time-sensitive food resources to the offspring. Early season plants can't sustain pollinators for later season plants. Plants may no longer synchronize to attract more insects and bees. Change in the species distributional ranges and species extinction. Here in this image you can see that the climate feedbacks, human well-being and human overpopulation has affected the ecosystem health, resulting in species extinction and species redistribution. So to sum up the effects of global warming, changing rain and snow patterns, stronger storms, damaged corals, changes in animal migration and life cycles, higher temperatures and more heat waves, rising sea level, more droughts and wildfires, warmer oceans, loss of snow and ice, thawing permafrost, changes in plant life cycles. All these are the effects of global warming. Now, what are the strategies to deal with the global warming? Increasing the vegetation cover, growing more trees and forests, reducing the use of fossil fuels and greenhouse gases, developing alternate renewable sources of minimizing uses of nitrogenous fertilizers and aerosols, using organic fertilizers. Now let us move on to ozone depletion. What is ozone? Ozone is a colorless gas which reacts readily with air pollutants and causes rubber to crack, hurt plant life, damages lung tissues. But ozone absorbs harmful ultraviolet beta radiation and UV alpha radiation from sunlight. Ozone chemical structure is O3, is a highly reactive form of oxygen. Unlike oxygen O2, ozone has a strong scent and is blue in color. Ozone exists within both the tropospheric and the stratospheric zones of the Earth's atmosphere. In the troposphere, ground level ozone is a major air pollutant and primary constituent of photochemical smog. In the stratosphere, the ozone layer is an essential protector of life on Earth, as it absorbs the harmful UV radiation before it reaches the Earth. Here you can see the different layers of the Earth's atmosphere. The outermost layer being the exosphere and the exobase between the thermosphere and the exosphere. Below the thermosphere, the mesosphere, and between the thermosphere and the mesosphere is the Kármán line. Below the mesosphere, the stratosphere. Between the stratosphere and the troposphere is the ozone layer, which is the troposphere is just above the Earth's surface. What is Dobson unit? DU is the unit of measurement for total ozone. 1 DU, 0.001 atmosphere centimeter, is the number of molecules of ozone that would be required to create a layer of pure ozone, 0.01 millimeter thick at a temperature of 0 degrees centigrade and a pressure of 1 atmosphere. Atmosphere means the air pressure on the surface of the Earth. Total ozone layer over the Earth's surface is 0.3 centimeters, that is 3 millimeter thick, and is written as 300 DU. You can see in the image the area covered by the column of ozone. All the ozone over a certain area is compressed down to 0 degrees centigrade and 1 atmospheric pressure. It forms a slab 3 millimeter thick corresponding to 300 DU. The false color view of the total ozone, the purple and blue colors are where there is the least ozone, and the yellows and the reds are where there is more ozone. In this image you can see the purple and the blue where the ozone is less, and the red and yellow the ozone is high. What is the ozone layer? It is a region of the Earth's stratosphere that absorbs most of the sun's ultraviolet radiation. The ozone layer is also called as the ozone shield, and it acts as a protective shield cutting the ultraviolet radiation emitted by the sun from reaching the Earth. Just above the atmosphere there are two layers, namely the troposphere, the lower layer, and the stratosphere, the upper layer. The ozone layer of the troposphere is called the bad ozone, and the ozone layer of the stratosphere is known as the good ozone, because this layer acts as a shield for absorbing the UV radiations coming from the sun, which is harmful to the living organisms, causing DNA damage. The thickness of the ozone column of air from the ground to the top of the atmosphere is measured in terms of Dobson units. The ozone shield is being damaged by chemicals released by the Earth's surface, notably the chlorofluorocarbons, widely used in refrigeration, aerosols, chemicals used as cleaners in many industries. The decline in the thickness of the ozone layer over restricted area is called the ozone hole. Here in this image you can see the oxygen molecules are photolyzed, yielding 2 oxygen atoms, which is a slow mechanism. Number 2, the ozone and the oxygen atom are continuously being interconverted as solar ultraviolet radiation breaks ozone and the oxygen atom reacts with another oxygen molecule. Number 3, the ozone is lost by a reaction of the oxygen atom or the ozone molecule with each other or some other trace gas such as chlorine, which is also a slow process. This interconversion process converts UV radiation into thermal energy, heating the stratosphere. Ozone depletion in the stratosphere results in more UV radiation, especially UV beta radiation, short waves reaching the Earth. UV beta radiation destroys the biomolecules, skin aging and damages living tissues. UVC is the most damaging type of UV radiation, but it is completely filtered by the atmosphere or the ozone layer. UV alpha or A contributes 95% of the UV radiation, which causes tanning, burning of skin and enhancing skin cancer. Hence, the uniform ozone layer is critical for the well-being of life on the Earth. In this image, you can see that above the altitude of 50 km is the UVC, which is filtered off. UVB reaches up to the ozone layer. Some quantity of UVA reaches the Earth. The wavelength of UVC is 100 to 280 nanometers, UVB is 280 to 350 nanometers, and UVA is 315 to 400 nanometers. If there is loss of the ozone layer or there is a hole in the ozone, the UV beta radiation, UV alpha radiation can reach the Earth's surface. During 1970s, research findings indicated that man-made chlorofluorocarbons reduce and convert ozone molecules in the atmosphere. The threats associated with reduced ozone pushed the issue to the forefront of global climate issues and gained promotion through organizations such as the World Meteorological Organization and the United Nations. Here you can see the ozone layer depletion. Normally, the UV alpha and UV beta radiations are filtered off by the ozone layer from reaching the Earth. There are certain substances which cause the ozone depletion, like the CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons, which are got from aerosols, refrigerants and solvents. Hydrochlorofluorocarbons from the aerosols, refrigerants and solvents. Halogens from fire extinguishers. Methyl bromide from pesticides. These substances, what they do, the ultraviolet rays split the chlorine atom away from the CFC of chlorofluorocarbon molecule, and the chlorine atom breaks up an ozone molecule, making a hole in the ozone layer. The molecules left behind are chlorine monoxide and oxygen. This causes the depletion of the ozone layer and the hole in the ozone. The Vienna Convention was agreed upon at the Vienna Conference of 1985 but entered into force in 1988, provided the frameworks necessary to create regulative measures in the form of the Montreal Protocol. The international treaty called the Montreal Protocol in 1987 was held in Canada on substances that deplete the ozone layer. And the main goal of it is gradually eliminating the production and consumption of ozone depleting substances and to limit the damage on the Earth's ozone layer. So what are the ozone depleting substances and what are the sources? Chlorofluorocarbons released from refrigerators, air conditioners, solvents, dry cleaning agents, etc. Halogens are released from fire extinguishers. Carbon tetrachloride from fire extinguishers and solvents. Methyl chloroform from adhesives and aerosols. Hydrofluorocarbons from fire extinguishers, air conditioners and solvents. Clean Development Mechanism (CDM) is defined in the Kyoto Protocol in 2007, which provides project-based mechanisms with two objectives: to prevent dangerous climate change and to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. CDM projects helps the countries to reduce or limit the emission and stimulate the sustainable development. An example for CDM project activity is the replacement of the conventional electrification projects with solar panels or other energy efficient boilers. Such projects can earn certified emission reduction with credits scores each equivalent to 1 ton of carbon dioxide, which can be counted towards meeting Kyoto targets. Here in this image you can see the CDM, the Annex 1 countries, which are the developed countries with legally binding emissions and reduction targets. They buy CERs from CDM projects based at developing countries. It's a low cost investment in developing countries. They earn additional revenue by selling CERs to the developing countries without legally binding emission reduction targets. And these developing countries plan and implement the CDM projects activity within their boundary. Greenhouse gases emission reduction projects are being projected in CDM and also the carbon sink projects. What are the plant indicators? The presence or absence of certain plants indicate the state of environment by the response. The plant species or plant community acts as a measure of environmental conditions. It is referred as biological indicators or phytoindicators or plant indicators. On the left side you can see the plants, on the right side you can see the indicators. The lichens, ficus, pinus, rose indicate sulfur dioxide pollution. Petunia, chrysanthemum indicate nitrate pollution. Gladiolus indicate fluoride pollution. Robinia pseudoacacia, otherwise called the black locust tree, is an indicator of heavy metal contamination. What are the effects of ozone depletion? The main ozone depletion effects are increases the incidence of cataract, throat and lung irritation, and aggravation of asthma or emphysema, skin cancer, and diminishing the functioning of the immune system in the human beings. Juvenile mortality is increased in animals, increased incidence of mutations. In plants, photosynthetic chemicals will be affected and therefore photosynthesis will be inhibited. Decreased photosynthesis will result in increased atmospheric carbon dioxide, resulting in global warming and also shortage of food, leading to food crisis. Increase in temperature changes the climate and rainfall pattern, which may result in flood, drought, seawater rise, imbalance in ecosystems affecting the flora and the fauna. September 16th is celebrated as the World Ozone Day. What are the effects of ozone layer depletion? To sum up, the human health damages the DNA, which suppresses the immune system, resulting in increase in infectious diseases, skin cancer like melanoma, the most fatal of all the skin cancers, eye cataracts. Effects on the plants and trees: reduces the crop production and damage to seeds, and reduces the quality of crops. So today, in Environmental Issues Part 1, we discussed about the introduction to the environmental issues, greenhouse effect in global warming, and ozone depletion. So thank you. Kindly subscribe, like, share and comment the channel Read MedPrep Academy. Log on to www.readmedprepacademy.com for UG and PG NEET MCQs. Our Facebook ID is Read MedPrep Academy. Our email is readmedprepacademy@gmail.com. Our Instagram is Read MedPrep Academy. Kindly WhatsApp the number mentioned here for joining Read MedPrep Academy to prepare yourself for UG and PG NEET exam. Thank you very much.